I'm going to call this meeting to order. July 5th, Planning Commission meeting. Call to order. Can I have a roll call, please?
Ahern,
Here.
Bathke,
Here.
Janezer,
Here.
Eisler,
Here.
Staber,
Here.
Vincent,
Here.
Willer.
Here.
Item number 2, approval of the agenda. Can I have a motion?
I'll motion.
I'll take Heisler motion. Is there a
Second.
second? A second by Staber. All in favor of the approval of the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have an agenda. The next 2 items are election of the chairperson and vice chairperson. I'm going to open it to discussion if anyone's interested. Any comments or questions? If not, you can go ahead and have motions.
I'll move that Josie be chairperson. I'll second.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and have a vote. Do we need a roll call? Let's do a voice vote. All in favor of renewing, actually, I'm vice chairperson right now with the vacancy of the chair. So approving me as the chairperson, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, well, thank you. Obviously, I accept that responsibility. And then we'll go to election of a vice chairperson. I know I've spoken.
If no one else wanted to, I'd be. If anyone else wants to, by all means.
Definitely open to the experience, right?
Move that we don't rearrange our seats.
Staber is vice chair.
I'll move that Patrick be vice chair. Patrick Staber.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
No.
Jason,
Sorry.
No,
Jason.
you said, yeah, Josie got that in my head.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I did. I got it
I
wrong.
rescind
Sorry
my
about
motion,
I
excuse me.
appreciate that, but yeah.
Why don't you move then? So then we'll get it right.
I move that Jason is vice chair for planning and zoning.
I'll second.
that. There you go. Motion by Staber, second by Ahern. See, I can get that right. All in favor for the vice chair, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Great. We've got the chair and the vice chair for the next fiscal year. Thank you. All right. Yeah, and I started that when I got off one name. There we go. We'll move to item 5, the Preserve Part 3 preliminary subdivision plat. And I'll open it for, is there a staff presentation?
A very brief one, and I'll put some stuff on the screen. This is for a 39 lot subdivision on 9.79 acres. This generally corresponds to some of the recent rezonings that we've had, but kind of includes the rest of the preserve. So this will preliminarily plat the rest of the preserve. So really don't have much. I have findings, 2 findings, and staff does recommend approval. I know we had a long agenda, so I'll be brief on the ones that aren't really controversial, but certainly if you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Thank you, Ryan. We'll move to an applicant presentation. Is there an applicant presentation? If so, please come to the podium and introduce yourself.
Good evening, John Marner with MMS Consultants representing the developer. Same as what Russ said, it's infill to finish off the portion of preserve. It's the last remaining portion of ground, and it matches the recently passed RS9 zoning. It's a mix of RS9 zoning on the west, and then it's the single-family lots on the eastern portion and along the south. I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you. And I'll open it to public comments. If there are any, please proceed to the podium and introduce yourself. If there are none, I'll open it to questions and comments to the commission.
I just want a real quick clarification. So you mentioned RS9 and then said single family to the east, but RS9 is also single family. So I just want to make clarification that we are talking about single family in both. Okay, thank you. So RS9 and RS6. Yes. Okay, thank you.
I don't have any questions.
No,
Okay.
this is straightforward. This is what.
Yeah. If we don't have any questions, then I'll entertain any motions. And I know Ryan has some samples up there if there's you want to use as recommendation, but a motion and a second.
I'll move that the planning commission accept the two listed findings and forward the preliminary plat to the city council with a recommendation for approval.
I'll second that.
Motion by Heisler, second by Willer. Could I have a roll call, please?
Willer,
Aye.
Vincent,
Aye.
Bathke,
Aye.
Staber,
Aye.
Heisler,
Aye.
Janizer,
Aye.
Ahern.
Aye.
Great. All right, we'll proceed to item number 6 on the agenda, public hearing on zoning map amendment. Staff presentation, please.
Okay, so this is a request, currently property zoned RS6. They would like to rezone portions to RS9 and RD10. And let's see, the RD10 would be on 7.06 acres, and the RS9 would be on 2.29 acres. When I first talked to the applicant about this, very initial conversation, we talked about with market changing, some changes with two-family and some smaller lot single-family. You can see what's up on the TV there. We kind of talked through leaving the areas in green as RS6. The area to the south has some homes that are already built. The area to the north, the purple, 2 shades purple and the green to the north are currently undeveloped. So this would be a future phase. We normally don't like higher density residential on collector streets. Remley is a future collector streets because we're trying to limit number of curb cuts on there. So I just want to give you an idea of kind of how the applicant arrived at what you're seeing today. Here's the location. Current zoning, as I mentioned, is RS6. Future land use is residential. We did have a good neighbor meeting on May 12th. We had approximately 5 people that attended. There were some concerns and objections expressed. I think most of them pertain to wanted to keep a homogeneous neighborhood of similarly sized single-family lots. Other concerns raised were additional traffic. I'll talk about those in a second. To date, and in the packet, we've received 8 formal objections. It's hard to see up there, but I've kind of showed the property and showed little P's of where people objected. But again, the resolution's not that great, but that's where they are. There's 6 approval standards for your consideration. I've gone over those in the packet. These aren't absolute, but they kind of help you guide in your decision-making process. It's tough to read, so let me screw down there. So with respect to it not being a homogeneous neighborhood, I would point to a couple examples in the city. One's the Preserve that was recently approved, has a very good mix of single-family, two-family, townhomes, varying sizes of single-family lots. And that was recently approved. Pat and I live in Cedar Springs. There's a good mix of residential housing types in there as well. And I think one observation I've made in the city of North Liberty is we do have a decent mix of housing types. It's not all homogeneous, we think that's fine, and I think we actually encourage that. It's just got to make sense, and I think what they presented here, it makes sense to city staff. I don't believe the additional home sites that are generated are going to create a significant amount of traffic. So it'd be 22 additional home sites. If you do the math on that, that generate about 9.5 vehicles spread out throughout the day. So that equals 209 vehicles, and they'd be traveling north and south. So it's not a tremendous amount of traffic in staff's opinion. So we do believe that the RS9 and RD10 zoning achieve consistency with the approval standards that I had mentioned. And staff recommends the Planning Commission accept the listed finding and forward the request to the City Council with a recommendation for approval.
Okay. Thank you. And do we have an applicant presentation? Please come to the podium and introduce yourself.
Again, John Marner with MMS Consultants, speaking for the developer, and Kevin Digman also is here to speak briefly to some additional thoughts afterwards. A couple key points Ryan already mentioned the traffic concerns from the neighbors. With the requirement to put Remley Street in as part of this next step, before more units are built, they will have an additional access to Jones Boulevard, so all of the traffic won't be routed south through the existing neighborhood now. There will be an opportunity to route traffic both to the north and to the south. That should relieve some of the burden. Again, as he said, most of the intent here was to try to keep the RS6 existing down near the existing RS6 homes, and then keep the RS6 single-family homes off of Remley as well, and then keep the 0 lots, the RD10s, centered in the middle, and then the RS9s, those smaller single-family lots that provide that, essentially the price point that is the market right now along the east side of the property. I'm available for any questions. I'll let Kevin speak a little bit to some of the pricing, some of the costs.
Again, I'm Kevin Digman with Hodge Construction, part of the development group. We've had this parcel for quite some time, and I know the city's ran sewer through it, and we've done a lot of things with this, but we haven't developed it because obviously, everybody's aware how much building costs have gone up, and every community we've talked to is looking for some type of affordable homes, and by the time you do the development costs with the larger lots, you're up to $700,000-800,000 to build a home anymore. So. And we even these, with the duplex 0 lots, I mean, we're doing some of these in North Liberty, and the cost of those are getting close to $400,000 today. And so we met with city staff and said, look, we'd like to see if there's a possibility to add a little mix in here, help lower some costs down, get a little blended neighborhood, and they were kind of agreement with it. I know we do have, like we mentioned, to the south there, the bottom of the picture, we kept the zoning the same, and the zoning on, I think it's the top street, just for the number of drives. But inside, we kind of try to infill with a little bit more density to help keep the costs down, keep the price of the lots down, keep the cost of the homes down, so we could kind of get a mixed-use neighborhood. The other thing I do want to point out, I mean, you can't really see it on this, but these are extremely deep lots for what a city lot normally would be. These are close to maybe 170 foot deep, or a lot of times in a typical residential neighborhood, you've only got 135 or 140 foot deep. So when you look at the depth of the lots, it's not like the single family homes to the south are going to have the duplexes right on top of them because there is such a deep backyard to these. So, and again, we're happy to answer any comments you have or questions. So
Great, thank you.
thanks.
And do I have any public comments this evening? If no public comments, I'll move to questions and comments by the commission.
So I know that you've mentioned that we do have a couple neighborhoods already in town that have sort of a mixed, grouping of home types. But typically, when we see those, we see them where we have near the major streets, we have the multifamily housing, and then it moves into duplexes, and then it moves into, RS9, what we now have in Preserve, and then in RS6. So this seems like it's, we're just jamming duplexes and just right in the middle now to try to fix, what's going on with the housing market at the moment. I guess I just don't, and, we already have the duplexes in 2 other areas of this sort of region right now. So I'm not completely sold on adding duplexes into the middle of the property right now, just with sort of how we have been looking at zonings in other areas. So that's my comment.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? Or any response from the staff?
No, I mean, I see Pat's point, and I, the one thing we did talk about initially was, moving that duplex or the 2-family up to Remley Street, and it was just something we pushed back on because we didn't want those additional curb cuts along a collector street. And so I would also argue that to the north is much lower density. It's still, most of it's still in the county, but it's much lower density. And well, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you.
So is there any impact on property values to the east if north is up?
I have to be careful with that one because I'm not a certified appraiser. I don't think anyone here is. Yes, thank you. I don't believe they will, but I couldn't tell you for certain either way.
There look like extra big lots to the east of that, and I was just wondering.
Yeah, the one point I would make is if, introducing a change to this area would be incompatible. I mean, the lots to the east are all zoned RS4, and so arguably you could say, well, everything on this side should be RS4, and somebody in their infinite wisdom at some point thought a little bit higher density would be appropriate here. And I don't necessarily think that two residential uses like RS9 and that they're incompatible. They're residential uses that are just happen to be a little bit smaller of a lot size.
And it provides some different price points within the neighborhood.
Which appears to be what we're struggling with in the community.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Yes.
Mr. Digman, will this be in an association, or these be?
There'll be some sort of association. No, the homeowners will maintain their own
Okay.
properties. Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep it open for questions and comments, but if there are no further, I would be open to any recommendation or any motions. Do we have additional concerns we want to discuss?
I don't have any.
No, I don't either. Are you?
I mean, you do know, I mean, I'm all for more affordable housing. And I've always really, the RS9, like, I think that's a fantastic use of space and really gives, people of North Liberty another option than just a larger lot with a larger single family home on it. Given that this was just already zoned and sort of, when people were buying lots around this and what we went through before, I just struggle with going back to changing it now, given the locations. So,
No, I appreciate that. Thank you, Pat. And how would the commission like to proceed?
I can be ready to make a motion if you're ready.
Please, go ahead.
I'll move that the planning commission accept the listed findings and forward the zoning map amendment to the city council with a recommendation for approval.
I'll second that.
Motion by Ahern, second by Willer. Could I have a roll call, Tracy?
Staber,
no.
Janizer,
Yes, aye.
Willer,
Aye.
Ahern,
Aye.
Atke,
Aye.
Heisler,
Aye.
Vincent.
Aye.
All right. We'll proceed to item 7 on the agenda, public hearing on a zoning map amendment again, and I'll open it. Staff presentation, please.
Thank you. There's a portion of this property that was recently annexed into the city. It's the southern parcel. The northern 3 parcels were in the city. But the applicant has a contract for purchase on the southern half, and so is looking to provide a development proposal for all of it, redevelopment proposal. We did receive an annexation application for the parcel directly to the south, so and there is common ownership, so there's a good potential here for this to be kind of an up-and-coming commercial mixed-use type area, and that's what we're kind of aiming for. We talked about the applicant with the type of zoning. We discussed the C3 district, which they selected. The C3 district is the higher intensity commercial district. Overall property 6.76 acres, but please recall that in the zoning code update, the C3 district was kind of reimagined. It allows for kind of what we call horizontal or vertical mixed use buildings, meaning you could, and when I say horizontal, means you could have multifamily buildings and commercial buildings without the need to do a PAD, and a little bit more density with the residential. Location makes perfect sense. We're at the intersection of 2 arterial streets, so it's just becomes a natural for it. So I'm excited that somebody's, coming in and potentially using it. And I look forward to it. But property zoned ID currently, that's what property comes in as when it comes into the city. Current future land use map is commercial with residential. So I think the land use supports the C3 district, which allows those mixture of uses. We had a good neighbor meeting on May 12th. No one outside of the applicant or city staff was present, so we don't have any objections to date. Again, here's your approval standards. Staff's of the opinion it meets all of these. And again, we have one finding and a recommendation that the Planning Commission accept the listed finding and forward the request to the City Council with a recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. And do we have any applicant presentation this evening? Please introduce yourself and then.
Good evening. Mike Welch, Welch Design and Development, representing the applicant tonight. Like Ryan said, we're pretty excited about that opportunity to use the C3 zoning and kind of keep that flexibility. If we talked about earlier tonight, we're kind of changing in market conditions, that opportunity for commercial or residential, and be able to see that in the future for this, 6+ acres plus whatever happens to the south. We see that again with that location next to the high school and the other commercial in the area. Just feels like a good mix. I'm here. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Thank you. And do I have any public comments this evening? If not, I'll move to questions and comments by the commission. Is this a fairly straightforward one?
It was there a typo on the original one that had an objection?
Yep.
That there
Yep.
was no
Mike
objection?
pointed that
I
out,
was
so
trying to
we
figure out
corrected.
I was trying to figure out what was objectionable.
Yep.
And
Thank you.
I had to see nothing.
Yep.
Will I open it to any recommendations or motions if anyone has them?
I'll make a motion. I move that the planning commission accept the listed finding and forward the zoning map amendment to the city council with a recommendation for approval.
I will second.
Willer motion by second by Staber. Could I have a roll call, please?
Vincent,
Aye.
Ahern,
Aye.
Janezer,
Aye.
Staber,
Aye.
Heisler,
Aye.
Bathke,
Aye.
Willer.
Aye.
Thank you. We're just buzzing along. Let's go to item 8, a public hearing on a zoning map amendment.
Okay, so just wanted to briefly state that we have the next two items are companion requests. One is to rezone the property, and the subsequent one is a preliminary subdivision plat. I forwarded you correspondence from surrounding property owners that are objecting what I believe are largely technical details related to the preliminary plat. Staff's of the opinion that we should move forward with the rezoning tonight, but we are recommending that the commission table the preliminary subdivision plat. So just wanted to give that brief introduction. There may be folks here to speak on that, and that's fine. But I just wanted to kind of give that introduction first, and now.
So to clarify, you're recommending tabling item 9?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a request of Scanlon Family LLC and the trustees of Penn Township. This is 36.32 acres. The northern parcel was recently annexed into the city. Interestingly, there's I don't think it's officially designated, but a pioneer type cemetery with, I think, the most recent burial there being over 100 years. So very interesting history on the property. Included some of that background in the staff report. I would say one thing, this has no access to it whatsoever. The one thing the development would allow for is provide access ultimately to the cemetery property, which will remain under the ownership of Penn Township. So here's property currently zoned ID, shows the location of the, I'm not sure what shape that is, the trapezoid, I don't know. But generally speaking, where the cemetery is, and the rest is owned by Scanlon LLC. The future land use is residential. We had a good neighbor meeting on June 15th. Approximately 11 people attended. I didn't get a strong sense of objections at the time of the meeting. There were some general concerns about the use of 3 lots along Oak Lane, but certainly we've seen more objections come through and we forwarded those to you. So certainly we will consider those. Again, approval standards, there's six standards for the rezoning. and I'll just kind of go back. The property to the south is zoned RS4. That's the North Ridge Part 1. And so certainly it was staff's opinion that the RS4 zoning is appropriate in this location. So we do recommend approval of the RS zoning. I think there are some technical things that still need to be worked out. We're very hopeful that the applicant and the Fjord Subdivision folks, the HOA, will come together and kind of come to an agreement. That's the reason for the tabling of the second item. But for the rezoning, you're just considering the zoning itself. We recommend approval, and staff's of the opinion it meets those approval standards.
Okay. And again, on item 8, I'll open it to any applicant presentation. Thank you. Please introduce yourself.
Good evening, Lauren Hoffman with Holland Hall Engineers, Commission, city stakeholders. Thank you for your time. As Ryan mentioned, with the preliminary plat kind of taken off the table and going to next month, it's going to give us a month to coordinate with Fjords Addition folks to coordinate primarily on Oak Lane and access and whatnot on that front. But generally speaking, as Ryan mentioned, it fits the comp plan, and I don't think there's much for me to say here, but I'll be back next month to talk more specifics on the technical things that come forward with the preliminary plat. But Bob Downer is here as well. I'm not sure he's going to be speaking, but he's a liaison and kind of coordinating, facilitating the discussions with the Fjords Addition folks and also the Penn Township, the cemetery folks, and all in that. The coordination with the cemetery has gone well. They've reviewed our access that we're providing, and I've given a blessing on that. So, but again, that's kind of more a technical thing for next month. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any public comments on item 8? If not, I'll move it to questions and comments from the commission specific to item 8.
I mean, without considering the plat, RS4 seems absolutely appropriate for this area and fits with everything. I don't see any objection.
We're open to any recommendations then if you'd like, or motions.
I can make the motion. I move that the planning commission accept the 3 listed findings and forward the preliminary plat to the city council with a recommendation for approval subject to the condition recommended by city staff.
If you meant zoning.
That might
Zoning
be-
map,
That'd be the
maybe.
wrong.
I think
You might be ahead of us one.
Oh,
maybe one.
sorry. My mistake.
Page 38 is what you're looking for. Do we
Like
need
to modify?
Yes. I can modify.
I think that
Vincent, I'll allow you to modify.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I think you'd want to rescind that motion. If that's okay. and
I
then
rescind the motion.
let's,
it's on page 38, right?
There you go.
All right. New motion. I move that the planning commission accept the listed findings and forward the zoning map amendment to the city council with a recommendation for approval.
Revised motion by Vincent.
I'll second that one.
Second motion by Staber. No, Ahern. Sorry. Got it. Could I have a roll call, please?
Ahern,
Aye.
Rathke,
Aye.
Heisler,
Aye.
Willer,
Aye.
Vincent,
Aye.
Janezer,
Aye.
Staber,
Aye.
And do I need a motion to table item 9, or did the staff do that?
not yet. So we still have an agenda, right? And the agenda has a list of how things go. So there's a staff presentation, applicant presentation, public comments, the question and comments and so on.
Then we'll do that.
Right. I think the staff presentation will probably start off with
Please
a
table it.
recommendation for please to please table this and maybe a little discussion of why. And folks that are here, if they want to during the public comment, they can still do that.
Great.
And so no one has to not talk, but that's the procedure should be to stick with what's on the agenda.
Perfect. This is why we have our legal counsel, so thank
to
you.
help.
We'll move to item 9, then, the Northridge Part 2 and 3 preliminary subdivision plat. Could I have the staff presentation, please?
Okay, so I've got the current design up. If you look at the top right, which would be the northeast section, due to topography, it makes access to these 3 lots a bit of a challenge. And so what they are proposing is to have those 3 lots access off of Oak Lane Northeast, which would remain in the county. It's a private road. The Scanlon family owns the land, and it's an easement over it. So we've received quite a bit of objection regarding that. There's some other concerns about stormwater that you've seen in the correspondence I've provided to you, but our hope is that this discussion would have been a little bit further along, but it's not. And so I think delaying it a month does no harm because the zoning requires 3 readings at City Council. And so if you were to take action on this tonight, it would sit and wait for the 3rd reading of the rezoning, or we just table it, give them additional time, and it could still catch up to the rezoning presumably in August. And so we recommend you table it to give them, the applicant, additional time to chat with the Fjords HOA regarding access off of Oak Lane and the other issues that they've raised.
And do we have an applicant presentation this evening?
Hello again, Lauren Hoffman with Hall & Hall Engineers representing Scanlon Family Farms. I'll just kind of keep it brief because I suspect we'll be getting back into the details next month. But first off, I just want to make sure there's some clarification. Other than those 3 lots in the northeast corner, there would be no other lots fronting North Oak Lane, which I believe could be a concern of the Fjords addition. So it'd just be those 3 lots in the northeast corner. Regarding there's a crossing of a couple utilities, water and sanitary underneath Oak Lane. And just if you were to refer to a sanitary sewer study map, there's a sewer trunk line planned, as shown on this exhibit, going to the north. It's not necessarily to serve the area immediately north of this particular addition, but it would be more so to the north and the west. As far as stormwater, there are two basins within the kind of the limits of what we call the 3rd edition, which is the cul-de-sac and the loop street, to serve those areas on the westerly side of the ravine. There's kind of a ravine going through there. As far as the 3 lots in the northeast corner, and there's some notations on the preliminary plat that suggests that those individual lots will have their own stormwater management practices required when those homes are built. There are wetlands on the site. There are, I think, less than a 1/10 acre impact, very minimal impacts, just kind of where some culvert pipes would outlet water into the wetlands. As far as tree removals, very limited. There's a fairly pristine oak forest kind of surrounding the cemetery. And so we have the road pushed about 80 feet, if my memory serves me correct, about 80 feet east of the cemetery frontage. Accomplishes 2 things. Nearly eliminates any tree removals, and then secondly, it gives us some additional space to get access up to the cemetery. With that, I will stop my rambling and let you guys vote. Thank you.
Yeah. And do we have any public comments this evening? Please step to the podium and introduce yourself. We'll just take turns.
Brian Dennis. I live in the Fjords and I own the property that lines up to the development there with one of the private ponds in the neighborhood. So just voicing my concern and with Ryan's recommendation to table for further conversation to better understand what the watershed and silt retention plan is. My concern is it's not adequate based on what I've seen over the years and with evidence that I presented from past developments and what ends up in my pond and what ends up in the community pond from a silting and watershed situation. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Not sure if you've seen the pictures or things that I've sent along the way, but.
Okay, thank you. I'll let you know. Any additional public comments? Please.
I'm Tim Conklin. I also live in the fjords, and I'm on the board. I bought my home in November of 2020, and it was really apparent to me that there was going to be development around us. So we're not necessarily, well, at least for me, I probably can't speak on behalf of the entire association, but not necessarily anti-development. I think there's a need in the city. There's obviously a need for more housing. I just never thought it would be on the backs of the fjords and the watershed issues. But also our road, our connector road is our only road in and out of our subdivision. And there's seems to not be enough space for turning around of vehicles. And I'm really concerned about the sewer line going over there with the width of the road. And so we're hoping to have a little extra time here to work it out with the Scanlon family and hopefully regroup and get this thing approved. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Quinlan. I live on Cottonwood Court, also in the fjords. And I think I'd like to really just focus on Oak Lane. And I understand that probably by the letter of the law that the Scanlons own the land that's underneath there and the easement to it. But my understanding, reviewing a number of documents, going back in HOA meetings for the fjords, our neighborhood has always maintained that road since the fjords were built. So we do all the grass cutting, we do all the snow removal, any kind of repairs that need to be done to that road have been done on the backs of the community, which would, in a sense, to me, make that a private road. And so I think the concept of without proper notification and conversation of the fjords to assume that it would be okay to put 3 additional lots that would then open up and share driveways onto that road is a little bit ludicrous and a little bit inappropriate, I guess I would say. And I would ask each of you to take that into consideration as you're making your final decisions in August once this comes back. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to make a public comment? Okay, then I'll move to questions and comments by the commission. Are there any questions or comments? Or we could move to a recommendation, and I would need a motion to table the item until next month.
I can save my questions and comments until we're actually discussing the potential revised or not revised plat. I think it makes more sense. Seems appropriate.
Okay, could I have a motion then?
I'll move to table this matter for the August meeting.
Great, motion by Heisler,
I'll second.
second by Staber. Do we need a roll call, please? Yes, roll call.
Janizer,
Aye.
Staber,
Aye.
Bathke,
Aye.
Willer,
Aye.
Vincent,
Aye.
Heisler,
Aye.
Ahern.
Aye.
I did want to comment, thank you for all the comments, the staff presentation, and the applicant presentation. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to item 10 on the agenda, Liberty Villas preliminary subdivision plat. Could I have the staff presentation, please?
Sure. So this generally looks like the concept plan that you saw when through the rezoning. The one minor change that I will mention is the preliminary design had a multi-path, like a bike path along the north end of the property. Getting very cramped up there because they have to accept the water coming from the Fox Run subdivision and deal with that. We heard those comments through the rezoning. So what we had suggested and they revised their drawing is to make a path go into the subdivision and then just widen one of the sidewalks. Instead of a 5-foot sidewalk, becomes an 8-foot sidewalk and then goes along the back and to the north and then hooks into the trail that goes into Fox Run and behind Cedar Springs. So that allows pretty good access to the school and just we'll keep working to kind of get a cross connection over there. Overall, there's a few minor issues that are just technical. We'll have them revised before we go to City Council, but overall, it's staff's opinion that the preliminary subdivision plat achieves consistency with the code, and we recommend approval. And I'll go through here's the zoning map. It's RS6 and RM12 PAD. land use is residential. It's changed to residential recently. We had public input. We had 2 neighborhood meetings in conjunction with the rezoning. Those were on February 14th and March 22nd. So I think we've seemed to work through those concerns. We have no formal objections at all. And again, subdivision plats. 2 findings, achieving consistency with the code. So staff recommends you accept the 2 listed findings and forward the request to the city council with a recommendation for approval.
Thank you. And just to clarify, I believe we're on page 79 of the packet. If anyone's having trouble keeping up, that's where I think I'm at for the beginning of the item. Just want to make sure. Okay, thank you, Ryan. And do we have any applicant presentation? Just trying to keep us all on the same page, literally.
My name's Brad Cummins, and I'm working with Dan Bernanke on this development. As Ryan said, we have 61 single-family lots, and then 7 of the 3-plex units. It's pretty much been the same since the original plan. We've just moved that path. So happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And do we have any public comments on item number 10 of the agenda? No, then we'll go ahead and move to questions and comments by the commission. Any conversation or questions?
Looks solid and straightforward.
I drive by this regularly and I'm looking forward to it, but yeah.
This is more for personal information. It is an 8-foot trail and then it goes down to a 5. Does the city maintain it when it's a 5?
No.
Okay, so it just the 8-foot trails.
Yep. Are you speaking of the part that goes into Fox Run, or there might be some older agreements there that we may be maintaining it, but I'm not. But normally speaking, if it's an 8-foot, anything, I think over 6 feet is what we say is we'll maintain it.
All right.
Just, there's nothing in our code that requires the city to do that, just something that it's been a policy that the city does. That's a nice thing that the city does for those trails. Every owner is still technically required to maintain those, but the idea would be that they would probably be notified before that changes.
Good. Thank you.
There's
Legal
no plan.
clarity.
No plans,
And
no plans of that.
And the city does a great job of maintaining them.
Yeah, sometimes they're plowed before the streets are.
Yeah.
So, but my question is, so there's an 8-foot trail that goes through the entire development, right?
Just along. Let me see if I.
It's along Carroll Court, right?
Yes. Let me see if I can
So,
point her
and then that connects back up with the existing trail. So, I mean, normally when I see the city take care of the trails, they're not along driveways. Am I correct on that? Like that?
No, there are some, and I'm
Okay.
thinking of one. There's one over in Liberty Center, for example. I know that is it right down a residential street.
That's right. Okay. Yeah, I do remember. Okay. I was just wondering how that would work. And then would we have more enforcement of vehicles parking along the trail when, we don't really see enforcement of vehicles parking along a sidewalk or, interfering with the sidewalk? Is there some sort of, do you know what I mean? Like,
You mean if they're parked over it?
yes, parked over that, because if we're going to propose this as like being the alternative to having a trail north of there, just, in between the 2 properties, which is what I think would have been a preferred method, but I understand with the water and all of that, it's a concern, but I just, if we're looking at this as a, trail system that we're going to be having.
It's what we really appreciate it when the public calls in and sees someone doing that or someone who's habitually doing that. So we can, a lot of times we'll knock on their door and remind them not to do that. And, depending on their patrol load, they may ticket it if they see it, but you're right. It's not a priority for them. So
Right.
we really count on, if you see it happening regularly, let us know so we can educate folks who may not be abiding by that. Whether it's a trail or a sidewalk, no, it's not going to get any more priority.
That's what I assumed. I just wanted to
Still unacceptable, but
mention,
a high
mention
priority.
that,
I think we put a notice out every spring to remind folks that, people are using things more now. But again, if anyone sees it, we're happy to knock on a door and talk to them as well.
Yeah, and I would also add, we did request and they are providing additional right-of-way. So it's slightly larger, and that, the only reason that matters is because, you know, the setback won't change to the front of the house, so hopefully we're not squeezing down that front yard setback that people are, you know, parking and hanging over for that reason.
Good information. Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain any motions.
I'll move that the planning commission accept the 2 listed findings and forward the preliminary subdivision plat to the city council with a recommendation for approval.
Motion by Heisler,
I'll second that.
second by Willer. Could I have a roll call, please?
Heisler,
Aye.
Vincent,
Aye.
Apke,
Aye.
Janizer,
Aye.
Willer,
Aye.
Ahern,
Aye.
Staber.
Aye.
Great, thank you. On to item number 11, a public hearing on an ordinance. Ryan, staff presentation, please.
Time for the exciting stuff. So,
Right.
kind of as I mentioned with the big ordinance change, I kind of create a parking lot, and as I notice things in the code, put them there, and then when there's a need to kind of move forward with something, then bring them all together. And these are
Titillating topics like landscaping and dumpsters. Thank
exciting
you.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Everything needs to be cleaned.
the big omission, which we noticed, there's a use called building trades and services that was unintentionally omitted from the code. And that was brought to my attention by a building trade and services company that wanted to relocate on a property. And so we did feel compelled to fix that. And so that was really the first part of it. We wanted to clarify when construction, remember we split the process to preliminary site plans and construction site plans. We wanted to clarify in the code when construction site plans could be approved and when they could not, particularly when subdivision improvements are contemplated. We don't want to get too far out ahead of things, and that's sometimes very dangerous to do. A couple other minor changes to the use table. Landscaping requirement. The one thing we noticed is we require in the code right now a landscaping berm between parking lots and the street, which are very nice. We had a recent example of a utility provider that said, do not put berms in our easement. Typically, those easements run along the backside of right-of-ways. And so we've kept the landscaping requirements as far as trees and shrubs like that go, but just the berming is not required. They can certainly provide it if they want to, but not required. We realized, and this is just kind of some of the stuff makes you laugh, in the dumpster recycling trash section, it didn't actually go so far as to say that the dumpster has to be inside the enclosure, which was very interesting to me. It's one of these things that you would assume it does. So we are fixing that and other things in the code. We did provide a specific language in the ordinance that retroactively apply. I think it was 20 years or so.
By coincidence, yes. The original amendment to the zoning ordinance that required new construction to have a dumpster enclosure was in June of 2020, I think. Sound right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so this particular revision is retroactive. Normally, you don't go retroactive very long. This is an unusual change, but the idea is put those. If we made you have a dumpster enclosure, please put your dumpster in it.
Logic may prevail at
And
certain times.
It does not apply to those dumpster enclosures which may have been created prior to June 7th of 2000. But please, everyone, put your dumpsters in their enclosures. So.
And then there were some minor changes to the subdivision ordinance, again, mostly pertaining to the timing of sequence of events. And we use SUDAS for a lot of our specs in the city. So we wanted to articulate that was approved by resolution as amended. So we did have one finding, and we recommend that you forward this request to the city council with a recommendation for approval.
Right. I believe we're on page 89 of our packet. Great. Thank you, Ryan. Do we have any public comments on this topic, item number 11? If not, we'll move to questions and comments by the commission.
It was dry reading.
It's highly controversial stuff. It was not.
Breaking my heart over here, Jason.
But it was at the end. It was the end of a large packet, so I'll get.
Put it right up front next time.
This is where we're earning our due respect, right?
I do have to ask if thought was given on the berming, because I actually am not normally a fan of that's one requirement that I'm a proponent of. Was there any thought to keeping the requirement with the exception of those
Utility easements?
those utility easements? Or is it, I mean, and I get it. I'm not asking anybody to make their jobs more complicated, but I'm just curious if that was part of the discussion.
I think it's rare that you wouldn't have a utility easement on the back of a right of way. Kevin, you might be able to.
It would be. Is it? Okay.
Yeah. For any new road that comes in, it's the right of way and then a utility easement. And it's not necessarily to say that they can't do it. It's just when we as a city government say you have to do it in this situation, then they have to have a 20-foot wide landscape, and it just gets a little weird.
Sure. Thank you.
Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm open to any motion. Please, not all at once.
I'll move that the planning commission accept the listed finding and forward the ordinance amendment to the city council with a recommendation for approval.
Thank you. Motion by Ahern.
I'll second that.
I'm going to take the second by Heisler. Thank you. And could we have a roll call, please?
Heisler,
Aye.
Batke,
Aye.
Ahern,
Aye.
Staber,
Aye.
Vincent,
Aye.
Willer,
Aye.
Janezer.
Aye.
Great. Let's move to item 12, approval of the previous minutes. I'll open it to a motion.
I'll move
Or
to,
any questions or comments if
did
anyone
anybody-
has them. Sorry about that.
we like to talk about the previous minutes so much.
I know it's very. Okay, please go ahead.
I'll move to approve the previous minutes.
Ahern motioned.
I'll second that.
Second by Willer. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Great, thank you. Old business. We've done well.
You guys did really well tonight.
All right.
Yeah.
New business.
I've just got a couple of items for next month, so we're still pretty busy. Not as busy as this month, though.
And we continue to meet in the chamber here, correct?
Yes.
Did I recall last month or the month before was supposed to be somewhere else? And
We had a conflict with the voting going on here.
oh, that's what it was. Okay, but we remain here in the chamber.
Yep.
Anything else? Well, great. If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Motion by Ahern,
I'll second.
second by Staber. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good, we're done.
Kudos to the new chair.